That's why we have the 10-ear syndrome, the bruise on the ear with the underlying subdural hematoma. The one exception, the one reasonable way to bruise an ear is by pinching. And pinching ears to physical abuse. A kid with a bruise on the ear by itself, you ought to be seriously thinking about a child abuse report. Neck. Strangulation in children over. Strangulation is the most common cause of unintentional harm. The one on the left is the classic case that I've never seen in 15 years in this field, where you have the clearly demarked line with the petechiae above it. More frequently see is these subtle circumferential marks around. That is enough for an attempted murder charge, because strangling kids is not appropriate discipline, and lots of kids end up dead that way. And again, a kid with more than 4 bruises is statistically unlikely to be accidental. Absent some real good story like a motor vehicle accident, you ought to be thinking about abuse. Fractures we're going to buzz through because you don't do x-rays in the ambulance. Rib fractures are really concerning for abuse, especially in infants. This is a fracture called a classic metaphyseal lesion that I need to teach the residents how to recognize. It's caused by a combined twist and pull at the same time. We see these when diapering goes badly and they yank the kid's leg to try and make him stay still. We also see these in shaken baby syndrome when you grab the kid around the chest and shake and the arms and legs. This is the bucket handle lesion. This is also a classic metaphyseal lesion. These are actually the same fractures, but this appearance and that appearance are the same fracture, and it's just the of the bone that determines which appearance you get. Subdural hematomas. And you hear about a life, you ought to be thinking about abuse. Story, think about abuse. So now you've heard about this abuse. So you're going to interview the child, you're going to interview the non-offending caretaker, you're going to examine the child, you're going to write the forensic exam report, you're going to interview the witness, you're going to go a few houses up and down, knock on doors, see if anybody saw anything. Everybody write the safety plan, you're going to write the removal petition and file. And then you get to go to court and prosecute. You think you can do that? Oh, I've made this my career, and I cap out at number 5.
I thought you wanted to prove yourself.
Write arrest warrants if you're not a real police officer. Anyway, child abuse is an inherently more. We have people on our multidisciplinary team who do it very well. You don't have to know, you don't have to. No. sorry, South Carolina specific.
All right.
Your wife, do you know how to report child abuse in Ohio?
Call Children's Services.
Please, CSP law enforcement. So it's CSP in the county where the child lives, or law enforcement in the jurisdiction where it combines reporting for the whole state. I quite frankly don't know if Ohio does. I don't practice there anymore. Address that gives us the jurisdiction. So CSP name.
A job well
So if
done.
you know the parent's
Now
name,
claim your
that's
reward.
helpful. And then just why you're concerned. And partial reports are accepted. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be sure. You just have to be concerned. We're going to discuss the South Carolina law because that's what's on my form, but due to the federal CAFTA Act, all 50 states are similar. So a physician and that ... professions in it, and I'm pretty sure paramedic is one of them. And so if you receive information give you a reason to believe that a child has been... Notice it doesn't say you have to have proof. It doesn't say you have to believe that it happened. If you receive information that would cause a reasonable paramedic to think that this might be abuse or neglect, you are obligated to report. Now, in South Carolina, if you don't, and this is also true in Ohio as well as in South Carolina. You cannot be sued, you cannot be fired, you cannot be demoted, you cannot be disciplined at all for making a child abuse report in good faith, even if you're wrong. And so, if there's a carrot on this slide, what's coming on the next slide? And the stick, of course, or you can get a $500 fine or go to jail for 6 months, because those are $500 fine and going to jail for 6 months. Those are about the same, right? So I not a criminal offense, but if you fail to report child abuse, the child or their guardian can sue you civilly, and it's handled through the civil courts, and it costs a whole lot more than $500. So, people you may meet, there's DSS investigators, police officers are generally who you're going to meet. I usually tell people road officers, they're information gathering machines. They listen and they don't tell you anything. The detectives are the people who work more with me, and they'll usually find me, or they'll find Paul McPherson, who's the child abuse pediatrician for your area. CSB and solicitors, everybody has attorneys. If I'm doing my job, you probably shouldn't hear from the attorneys because they tend to find me, I give them everything they want, and they leave everybody else alone. But the reason that we have both police and CSD is because we have two different legal systems that run in parallel. On the right, we got criminal law, and you know what that is because it's just like on Law and Order. You're either guilty beyond a reasonable doubt or you're not. And we can get protective orders, fines, probation, incarceration. Dang, in South Carolina, you can even kill people in criminal court if you do it right. But you have to name a defendant and you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And often we can't. Civil law. That's like if I run into you on the highway and we don't disagree on how much it should cost to fix your car, you can sue me civilly. And there, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, it's preponderance of the evidence. Whoever tells the better story wins. Well, it turns out that the government can sue you civilly for custody of your car. And then, we don't have to prove beyond a reason, we don't have to prove by preponderance of the evidence. And we can make it do counseling, we can make parenting classes, we can do things to get the children protected without the burden of proving an individual did it beyond a reasonable doubt. And at some late stage, rarely we can terminate people's parental rights. So, kids who've been abused have a lot of different needs. They need a good forensic interview. They need a medical evaluation. They need protection from police. They need CPS to get that civil stuff going. There are attorneys who need to be involved. And back at kids go from place to place to place to place, and they were telling the story over and over and over, a little bit different every time, and it wasn't working. So now we do things in a child advocacy center, where we bring all those pieces to one place. This is the Child Advocacy Center that I previously had the honor of directing in Boardman. And back behind this door, we have our most important instrument in the Child Advocacy Center. We call it a conference table.
If I kill more people, you're gonna give me a new gun,
We got lots
right?
of really, really smart people to come sit at our conference table and do all those things that have to get done. We have dedicated interviewers who will ask questions right away, so they're not meeting, so we get good information. And they're gonna record the interview, so anybody who wasn't there doesn't get to ask again, they just sit and watch the video. We have all the equipment to preserve freezes and general injuries and DNA and everything else. We can give all the right information. This is Dr. Henry Kent, who in 1963 wrote The Battered Child. And writing this to say child abuse pediatrics is a specialty in pediatrics. It's 3 years of training. I know what happens when a kid falls out of the first floor window, second floor window, first floor window. I know what happens when they fall off the couch, off the bed, off the chains, and went out of the high chair. If you're hearing a story that gets to make sense, get near to the homeless person to call. We may have literature about whether that makes sense or not. And we have that. We go to the meetings for you.
Oh, sorry, my hands
It's gonna put a real hole in your day. You're gonna go to a 15-minute multidisciplinary meeting in the middle of the morning. But I grab a stack of charts and I go for the whole morning. And, oh, by the way, I can get paid to go to these meetings and you don't. And I go to court for you. I actually like going down there and defense attorney. It's kind of fun. Yes, I have in my career actually made a defense attorney run out of the courtroom crying. And yes, it is fun when you do that. So if you don't like going to court like I do, let me go for you. And these are all the benefits that you get when you make a referral of an abused child to the Child Advocacy Center. So in conclusion, child abuse is common. Just like the gorilla, if you're not seeing it, you're missing it. And you're not missing it if you're not thinking about it. We talked about a lot of injuries that are concerning for abuse, but no injury is diagnostic of abuse. You're required to report a reason to believe. You are not required to investigate, you are not required to be sure, but you are required to report. And child protection is a specialized and multidisciplinary field.
I like this.
And especially if you make a report and you don't feel like you're getting heard, that's my job. Sometimes I just need to take what you said and put it in the order that it shows up in the statute that they're trying to go through. Sometimes I need to just say things a little differently. Sometimes I need to say, yep, that sucks. And child abuse is the job of the least bad alternative someday. But child abuse pediatricians, we are the representatives of the medical team to the multidisciplinary team, and let us help you out. Are there any questions about this presentation?
John, I just want to point one thing out in the state of Ohio. EMS personnel, they are mandatory reporters. You are mandated to report any suspicious cases of, that nature. So EMS, you are mandatory reporters by statute.
Very good. All right. Well,
All right, let's shake this shit up and get some new firepower.
Another 5 minutes. So 8:53, we are going to do 5 more cases, and then we will have the American. So thank you so much. I'm going to start with them doing this. And
Thank you all for putting your hand up. Dr. Melville, we have people put their hand up, like, who's staying attentive and that. You put your hand up at the break, and then we ask that you take it back down. So, Stephen Berger, since I picked you randomly, where are you?
I am from the Central Ohio area.
Okay, I wasn't trying to call you out or anything, but I just picked a name that I didn't recognize because a lot of the folks that we're talking are people that I know from our community, you know what I mean? So I just want to get everybody involved. I wasn't trying to pick on you.
No, well, I found it funny, so I sent you an email today, and so when you were like, I'm going to look for someone outside the area, I figured, oh, great, who's going to see my name?
There you go. You got on my radar somehow. Maybe it was subconscious.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you're enjoying the talk.
Oh, yeah, they're very informative.
No problem. We're gonna try and keep this going.
Perfect.
Maybe not twice a week, but once a month.
Okay. No, I definitely like to attend regularly. Like I said, suggested it to quite a few coworkers and other peers in the area that I know, and let them know that it's been quite informative.
Ah, good. Glad to hear that. I'm glad you're having a good experience. Thanks a lot.
For me? You shouldn't have.
Another 2 minutes.
At this point, it's just muscle memory. I'm not even really paying attention, I'm just fucking going.
Alright. Thing is, I killed you once.
$720, whatever I did.
You won't need a weapon here. It's just you and me.
Alrighty. Welcome back to the last segment of this very long 3-hour lecture. Our final hour is going to be 5 more cases, just like the first hour, and so another case, we need another victim. So, who is our next player?
Yes, yes. Remember everything. Everything you've done. All of these, you failed.
Now this is nice.
Whoever plays last, pick somebody.
Beautiful sight. I mean, what can I say? I just love to watch
Would
myself
that
work.
be me from the bruises?
Yep.
Then I'm gonna pick Rick Tricep.
Hi Rick, how are ya?
Good. How are you, sir?
Very, very good. So, you are volunteering at the high school football game. It's homecoming and they're playing crosstown rifle. And your 17-year-old star quarterback has been recruited by a whole bunch of colleges and he's already talking about the NFL. Fourth quarter and the home team is down 7-10. And
Nice.
guess what happened?
Oh, right.
So you kind of notice that he's not moving a whole lot. That ain't got nothing to do. He's out.
The path you chose led to defeat. Shame. Listen to me, Vaas.
He's actually
Be what you were meant. Be mine.
Hey, Citro, fuck off! I'm done with your shit. I'm getting the fucking knife and I'm getting the fuck out of here.
But 4 minutes later, and that's 4 minutes later, game time, of course, because is there any other kind of time?
Hey, this is my favorite part.
The score is now 7-13, and the home team recovered a fumble on the 35-yard He is alert, he is oriented. He can do 07s from 99 all the way down to 0. He runs back in hearing, they're calling his name, and the coach says, what do you want me to do?
Well, it's simple.
Why is that?
Well, because he's at risk for a second and probably even more severe concussion.
Very, very good. Gist of this. So, the definition of concussion is injury to the brain that causes neurologic dysfunction. You are not the coach. The fact that he calls you coach more than once means that his brain is not working right. The rule which, fortunately, youth sports, you have a concussion bad enough to stop playing, you do not go back playing that day. And ideally, you do not go back to play until you're cleared by a physician who is experienced in concussion care. Because, as you mentioned, the so-called second impact syndrome can cause very bad death. Well,
Come on.
is there any other kind of death? It can cause death and other very bad things if you get 2 concussions in rapid succession. According to the 2013 and now the even more recent concussion guidelines, you do not rate concussions anymore. So there's no more type 1, type 2, type 3. A concussion is a concussion. All athletes who sustain a concussion are out for the day. Now, this has changed a little bit. 4 or 5 years ago, we were doing complete rest, and that meant physical rest and mental rest. They couldn't go to school, they couldn't watch TV, they couldn't read, they basically couldn't do anything for several days until the headache went away. We've eased up on that a little bit, but there's still a graded return to physical activity. So they have to be symptom-free, and then we'll let them run for a couple days. And if you're still symptom-free after running, then you can do some weight training for a couple days, and then returning to the actual sport is obviously the last step. And as I said, there are positions.
All right, let's shake this shit up. Get some new firepower.
Very good. So the big answer is, so who's gonna play next? Pick our next victim. Hey, John, welcome.
Oh, sorry, my hands are...
Going out the bottom of the ladder, goes back up the top. She's always been sick with the child, and she's on risperidone and melatonin. And last month she started. And Mom called the EMS at 5 a.m. and the big complaint is she's having a fever.
You've done it. Now open the chest.
Sitting on the floor when Mom called her from school. She ran, fell over, and started shaking her arm. After about 3 minutes, she was unresponsive, and Mom called EMS. And she's had this happen 2 other times this month. Both
I like
right
this.
when it was time to go to school. And she has a 2.5-year-old brother who also has febrile seizures. So, what do you think is going on? What could it be? Oh, let's start with the easy stuff. What does Mom think it is? Hello? Are we connected?
Well, I'm probably thinking another seizure.
Okay, so you could have a seizure disorder. Is there anything else that you're thinking about?
She's faking. She doesn't want to go to school.
You think, so we got somebody who thinks she's faking it. Okay, so we got seizure, we got faking it. What else?
Did you say she just started taking any med?
Yeah, she did. She just started taking Adderall.
Could it be that?
So Adderall does cause seizures. It's pretty rare, but it happens. So, good things to think about. She gets to the hospital. Her head CT is normal. Her labs are normal. Her EEG is normal. And her talk screen shows amphetamines. What do you think about that?
That's from the Adderall.
Exactly. Adderall is dextroamphetamine.
I love to hunt in the dark.
Sounds like
So, okay, Munchausen. Very good, or the technical term is medical child abuse. What makes you think about Munchausen's here?
Oh, sorry, my hand slipped.
Investigated the prognosis for seizures over a period of time that nobody has seen. Kids who sick their child. About the case, that it's true.
It could have started after the surgery too.
Very, very perceptive. Very perceptive. So, you gonna guess at the final diagnosis? Got a bunch of good ideas.
Could it be tardive dyskinesia?
Oh, very, very good. Well, what would tardive dyskinesia look like? So, she's on risperidone, which can cause tardive dyskinesia. What would TDs look like? Would
Jerking movement.
they'd be jerking, but they wouldn't be episodic. TDs never go away, right? So TDs would be more constant, or this kid's behavior very discreet episodes. So it's decision time. What is it? Is she having seizures? Is she faking it? Are they TDs or is Mom faking it? So we got some guesses in Munchausen. The case I was trying to do was pseudoseizure. And for me, the thing that gives this one away is pseudo-seizures are a voluntary behavioral problem. So, it turns out that in the hospital, to get EEGs, sometimes we need to make kids have seizures, kids who have seizure disorders, but we want them to have a seizure in front of us, and it is incredibly hard to do. I mean, so we usually bring them in right about dinner time, and we take away all their seizure meds, and we keep them up all night, and we flash bright lights in their eyes, and we do all those things that says can cause seizure, and it usually doesn't. Seizures are completely unpredictable, completely idiopathic. This kid's seizures are getting her something, which is she doesn't want to go to school, and her seizures are very goal-directed. So that is a seizure, that is a pseudo-seizure. It's a very difficult diagnosis to make. Often there's been a sibling who had seizures, or there are kids who have real seizure disorder and pseudo-seizure. That's really fun to try and deal with. So, I'm glad that somebody mentioned Munchausen syndrome by proxy or medical child abuse. The other thing I was trying to hint at is what I call the fragile child syndrome, which is a kid who will have usually, I mean, vesicoureteral reflux. I mean, it's a big deal to the parent, but to his, to us, I mean, it's now basic surgery. I mean, the good urologist might just day if it's their OR day. But socially, in the parent's mind, the disease becomes the theme of their relationship with the child, and often that belief outlasts the illness. Not abuse, but something that requires a lot of really careful management to deal with well. Very good. So, we need another victim. Who's next? Pick somebody. Who's next?
Al Rabalski.
Alright, Al. Welcome. So you have got an 11-month-old female. And mom's boyfriend calls EMS because the child is not breathing well. Mom reports that 5 hours earlier, the child woke up from her nap, and she's 11 months old. And as I say, for those of you who haven't had kids yet, cribs have a high setting and a low setting. And when they're babies, you put them on the high setting. And then when they can stand up, you're supposed to put the crib on the low setting so that they can't do cartwheels over the crib rail. Well, that didn't work, and so this kid fell about 3 feet head first onto the tile below. She screamed like you can imagine you would if you fell 3 feet onto a tile floor. Cried, mom picked her up, and she was okay. Okay? So, then mom goes to work, and 5 hours later, boyfriend calls you and says that the child is not breathing well. So you got a temperature of 37.4, pulse of 62, respiratory of 15, blood pressure is 72/40. The child kind of responds, and but not really. And there's a great big bruise on the left side of the head. You pick the kid up and she moans a little bit, but doesn't even cry. And mom says that she bleeds easily and that it took almost 2 weeks for the umbilical cord to fall off. So, what are you gonna do?
Gonna drive like hell to the hospital.
Yeah, this is a get out of Dodge situation. There is nothing you can do at the
Didn't know
house
kill you in
that's
California.
gonna make this any better.
Look, I'm not trying to tell you how to navigate your own hell/mine, but maybe you should get a bigger gun.
So you get to the hospital.
Started treatment
What?
with try to treat whatever vital sign is the worst, I guess.
Real good. You get to the hospital, and they done a CT scan, but the radiologist isn't there. Anything on this CT scan that you don't like?
Yeah, the white area towards the bottom.
You don't like that big pool of blood sitting in the interhemispheric fissure? I can't imagine why not. So there's a lot of blood. I mean, they tell you that this blood is in the septal state. So, what do you think happened?
Got some type of contusion and bleeding internally.
Okay. Why did it take 5 hours to get so sick?
Baby's got big heads and small brains.
Baby's got big heads and small brains. Anything else that you think might be going on here? Any what?
Slow bleed.
Okay, slow bleed. Slow bleed. Alrighty.
Abuse from the boyfriend.
Abuse from the boyfriend. Somebody remembered I'm in town in this pediatrician. Is that gonna pay off? So we get to the hospital and she's not breathing real well. And we do a chest x-ray. And the lungs are okay, but there's another problem. So, when I was a child use fellow, my attending referred to this as the Comanche sign. You look at the x-ray and the part that has the arrow sticking out of it is probably the thick part. So we got narrow in this rib, 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 narrow in this rib. And looks like we got a broken arm too. We get the ophthalmologist to look at the eyes. And we got all of these bruises on the retina. And this is actually something called a retinoschisis, where the retina is actually pulled off the back
This
of the
will
eyeball.
work.
So what do you think's going on now?
The boyfriend.
This is absolutely a case of an abusive head trauma. Very, very well done. So, abusive head trauma is the most common legal form of child abuse. It is the most common form of head trauma in infants requiring paid care. So, you remember that I told you in the last lecture the household falls don't result in life-threatening injuries. So there's a guy named Dr. Hadaway, and he looked at the California epidemiology database, and the rate of children dying from a short fall between 1 and 2 years of age is about 1 in 2 million children. Now, who's raised a toddler? How many times a day does a 1-year-old fall? Too many to count. Add all those up over the entire second year of life, and 1 in 2 million of those kids will die from it. And when you get that rare an event, it may actually be zero, but it's really hard to prove that 1 in 2 million isn't just the child abuser who got away with it. The other hint here was
filling up the
5-hour
armory.
delay.
I like it.
You've probably heard about talk and then die. Happens in adults with epidural hematomas. Does not happen in infants. Infants who have a life-threatening head injury immediately become symptomatic and stay symptomatic until they get definitive care or they die. So, very good. This was a case of abusive head trauma because even though I'm a pediatrician, I'm a child abuse pediatrician too. Very well done. Who is our next player?
I can use a shot of this. I remember this fucking trick.
Luke Atkins.
Hey Luke, how are ya? Luke,
Hey, how's it going?
going good. So you are volunteering at the track meet for the high school, and you got a 13-year-old who runs track, and he just won the 220 meter state final. And as he walks off the finish line, he collapses and is unconscious for 30 seconds. Okay? And by the time you arrive, he's awake and alert, but he's a little bit confused. Now, he didn't hit his head. I'm not going to do that to you. And he denies any question. But the coach is really worried because he says, you know, remember that kid 3 years ago who died in a high school football game? They're like, yeah. It's like, yeah, it's in high school. And so, he's got 10 to 36-4, 132, his wrist was 35, blood pressure's awfully high, 145/95, his skin's moist, maybe even a little bit clammy, his heart's going, heart rate of 132, his heart's going bum 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 bum. So you don't think you can hear a murmur, but at 132, if you didn't hear it, no one would blame you for missing it. His lungs are clear, his belly is soft, he's got scrapes on his forehead and his knee. So, when we talk about the differential, there's a really interesting study. They look at why doctors make mistakes, and the methodology of how they did this is very, very weird. But in more than 80% of cases where doctors made mistakes and hurt patients, they never considered
That was good.
diagnosis.
Now keep fighting for me.
So it turns out that most of our diagnostic errors are not errors of analysis. They're errors of imagination. That's why we say you need a really broad differential before you prune it down. So give me a broad differential. What could be going on?
Prolonged
Okay, prolonged QT could definitely do it. What else could do it? Let's think broad. What else can make you just faint all of a sudden?
diabetic.
Could be diabetic? Yeah, if you were diabetic, would he come back that quick?
Probably.
Electrolyte imbalance.
What?
Maybe he took some workout.
Electrolyte imbalance.
Electrolyte imbalance. Real good. Maybe he's been working out real hard. Maybe he's been doing creatine. For a while when I was a primary care dog, the creatine was a real big thing. I don't know if it actually makes you a better athlete, but it sure takes a toll on your kidneys. What else is going on?
How about overhydration?
Overhydration? Possibly. Drink too much water, keep sodium down. You got overhydration, you gotta think about underhydration. He is, outside at the track meet.
Bye-bye.
So, a lot of things to think about. At the hospital, yes, a normal exam, a normal chest x-ray, a normal electrocardiogram, and a normal echocardiogram. What's going on here? And why is this in a pediatric section?
Well, it sounds like everything checked out.
I am a part of my island. It's a part of me. I like my mind. I have a nice little cozy mind.
Could this be overexertion?
This case was syncope. The important fact here was that he's 13. This is a kid who is right at the cusp of his pubertal growth spurt. And as kids go through their growth spurt, they're getting taller faster than their vascular tone is compensating for it. So, if you're building the skyscraper and you're not putting the pumps in the bottom, eventually you're not going to be circulating blood to the brain, and that tends to be a bad idea. So, children, right about the time they hit their growth spurt, there's this big rise in syncope, and it's not vasovagal, it's nothing like that, but it is a sorry, just lost my thought. It's just part of being a kid. Generally, we don't have a lot of good treatments for it. We try a high sodium diet, sometimes helps with some hormone therapies, but nothing works real well. Kind of the best treatment that we have for this is to stop growing, let your vessels catch up with your height, which fortunately happens pretty quickly because the pubertal growth spurt is kind of the last hurrah, and then you're done. So yeah, lots of them tried, none of it worked. The other thing that we wanted to talk about here, so we talked earlier about something common and something that can kill you and something you wouldn't have thought of. The thing that you can't miss here, because the thing that can kill you is the hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. This is a genetic condition where the septum, the middle of the heart, gets too big, it gets big enough that when you're exercising, your heart can no longer pump blood to the heart. And basically, it can
No, thank you.
a heart attack, causes sudden cardiac death. The classic story that's happened far too many times is the star quarterback in the big game, you know, lots of physical activity, lots of emotional tension, lots of catecholamine running around, falls over and dies on the sports field in front of all the fans. It's happened more than a couple times. And so the echocardiogram is a very good test. The NFL, which has more money than sense, does echocardiograms on everybody when they come in. The NCAA is a little bit more measured, probably because they actually have to have a budget. But there is a screening process by history, by physical exams, careful for physician work, and we end up doing a lot of echocardiograms on, again, elite athletes, just to be sure.
Use it wisely.
But the far more common what this was is syncope, and it's just a result of getting taller. Alright, we got one more case. Who is our last victim gonna be for the evening?
Derek Hollander.
Alright, Derek. Your case is titled, Hey Baby Baby. And you got a 17-year-old female, and she presents to the ER for the 5th consecutive week, insisting that she is pregnant. She's had 4 negative pregnancy tests in a row. We offer her condoms because we offer kids condoms every time they come to the hospital.
I'd like to meet the people who built these guns.
And this
And they
is,
call
oh
me
yeah, I
Cuckoo.
got them, but they don't work. This was previously an A student, and she has missed 15 days of school in the last 3 months, and she's failing 2 subjects. So, before we get the rest, what happened to the teenagers that
Yeah, I think more of this guy's supply is gonna give me the insight than I need.
Two subjects. What do you gotta say?
Come here.
Okay,
Would you? Swap since I was a boy.
Get involved in drugs and school is the first thing to go. What else can make a previously good student go real bad?
She's been recently attacked or abused sexually.
Okay, sexual abuse will do it.
Hey there.
And just get the new boyfriend do it? Oh, heck yeah.
Hurry on.
Oh, heck yeah.
You've nearly got. There we go. Oh, I'm going to yes. Double yes. Over there.
All
Other
right.
family and family.
Thank God.
Divorce,
I lost them forever.
good or bad things. So when I worked in
Really have a nice.
and we'd have the units come back from Afghanistan, and the little 4 and
government
5-year-olds would start wetting the bed, you know, a week after Daddy came back. And of course, clinic, it's like, no, having Dad come back is just as stressful as having Dad go away. So, you know, we got the sex, we got the drugs, we got the rock and roll, we got the boyfriend. How are you gonna figure out what's going on with this team? You gotta ask. And, you know, there are some things that they're not gonna talk to anybody who's ordered in 12.
No, you motherfucker!
There's not a whole lot you can do about that. If you're talking to a teen in front of their parents, you are not getting the truth. Full stop. Don't care how good they are, if mom's in the room, you are not getting the truth. The other thing I've learned about teens, especially teen girls,
I remember this. Let's get to the bottom of the fucking
they
rabbit hole.
get the ability to behave very mature and grown up years before they actually have the mental machinery to back it up. And I can't tell you how many 14-15-year-old girls will go in, do their complete history, they'll tell me all about it, they'll tell me about their sex lives and their sex partners and on and on. Just very matter of fact, very cooperative and like, great, well, when you're having belly pain, why don't you lie down so I can feel your belly? And that's when you start crying.
You were
they
meant?
just can't hold up the parade. So, whenever you take a look
Oh, you're fucking angry now, right? It feels good, right?
Factually, and do not get fooled into believing that a teenager who is acting grown up
We were
is thinking
supposed to
grown
protect
up
each other.
because I
We
promise
promised.
you,
We
they're
would
just
always be by each other's side. Why?
So,
Why did
maybe
you leave?
that's a lot to say, but my reports is to spend hours and hours staring at
Did you leave me?
Mom says she's always been the
Only
odd
family
one,
you've ever known.
but this is really way odder than this. And so last fall, they did it in colleges, and she was all excited, getting ready for after high school, and now she hasn't filled out any
Capitalism, you
applications.
slutty fuck. The rich get
That's
richer,
the question
and everybody
for
else
answer,
dies.
yeah. Whatever, I guess. But she denies doing drugs. Not only denies having any boyfriends, she denies having any friends at all. She denies suicidal ideation. She denies homicidal ideation. Sometimes you think she denies ideation altogether. And then she tells you that she got her Obama phone that tells her what to do, and that Joe Biden is the father of the baby she's talking on television, and that the FBI is watching so they can snatch the baby and take it back to the White House. So what's your diagnosis?
Schizophrenia.
Absolutely.
Schizophrenic breakthrough.
Absolutely, and this is when it shows up. Schizophrenia, typically when it comes out, it'll be late teens or early 20s. Now, I gave you that last slide to make it more obvious because it's the positive, bizarre symptoms that make the schizophrenia get in the paper. Far more prevalent, far more treatment resistant, and far more disabling are the negative symptoms. The lack of drive, the lack of motive, you just sit there and do nothing. So, when you think about schizophrenia, it's not the teenager running naked on the football field at 2 a.m. Although that does happen, that's not most of schizophrenia. Most of schizophrenia is the more treatment resistant, is the negative vegetative syndrome. And that's what I got for you. I guess we ended about 15 minutes early. I'm sure nobody's gonna complain. I love pediatrics. I love taking care of kids. I especially love protecting kids who are involved in abuse and investigations. And so, since we got some time, any questions, any difficulties you've had with pediatric cases you wonder if it could have gone differently, anything about kids, it's kind of open game.
Man, I know I learned a lot tonight. I'm going to have to actually go back and watch this video again just to pick up on some of the things that I feel like I might have missed. Thanks for the just great, crazy information. I appreciate that. What a great perspective. The case studies were awesome. I love the interactiveness.
And thank you to everyone for playing along.
Very informative, Dawson. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you're putting your hand up, you can just go ahead and speak up.
Hey, Doc?
Yeah.
Okay, I had a case years ago where I went to a patient's house and I checked the child out and I felt there was something wrong. And I brought it to the police's attention, but the police did nothing. And the child stayed back in the house. I mean, how was I supposed to proceed with that?
So, it's hard. So, I'll tell you, so that's really why you need to have a child-abuse pediatrician, because so what I can do sometimes is, because we have both police and in Ohio CSB, you're likely to get more mileage out of reporting the CSB than reporting the police. Because you got to remember, the police are in the criminal justice system. And that means they have to know who did what, on what date, in what jurisdiction, and they have to have reason, they have to have pretty good proof. CSB has a lot more power. If we can show that a child has been abused, we can get services in for that kid, even if we don't know who did it. If we can show that abuse occurred, or if we can show that the parent should have known about the abuse, that's enough in civil court. So the first thing is, we report to both DSS, in Ohio CSB and law enforcement. The next thing is know who your friends are. So you guys have a child advocacy center in Boardman. I know because I was the director of it for 3 years and didn't manage to drive it into the ground despite my best efforts. And Joe can give you lots of information about the CAC because that's why I first there. So know who your friends are. Know who you can just ask questions of. The last thing I'll say is, child abuse is tough work, and sometimes we're dealing with the least bad alternative, and we don't win them all, but we win enough that it's a noble career, and it's something I love to do.
Always wanting more.
Hey, Doc, have you ever heard of something called
Yeah, so pointing and cupping are two Southeast Asian alternative medicine techniques. Pointing or Gao is a really kind of South Vietnam layout that is typically a treatment for upper respiratory type infections where they'll vigorously rub your skin with a coin. Sometimes they'll use a heated ointment under the coin. And it creates a really classic pattern. Cupping is more north of pointing. You get it in southern Russia, a little bit in Chinese medicine, also called moxibustion.
I'm
Where
looking
they'll
at what Jason
light
thought.
something on fire and put it in a cup on top of the skin, and the fire eats up all the oxygen and causes a sepsis, and that can lead to very characteristic circular diseases that are typically on the back. So these are what we call
that's it, no one left to kill.
culturally bound medical practices. They have, at least in my opinion, no medical value whatsoever, but the social judgment that we have made is that culturally bound medical practices are not physical abuse and are not neglect, and so they're among the patterns that child abuse pediatricians like me need to be able to recognize, especially because they're frequent among, new immigrants who may not speak the language well, who may not be assertive enough to say this is something that we do in our community. So, not considered abuse, and again, something that any good child abuse doctor ought to be able to pick off on site. Any other questions?
I have a question with child abuse with different counties. So because Boardman has a child advocacy center, would it be okay to bring someone from like Trumbull County there for that specialist care, or is that because we don't normally try to have children leave the county because they have a CSP?
So, as of 5.5 years ago, when I was the director, the CAC in Boardman covered Trumbull, Boardman, and the county just south of Boardman. It'll come to me. So
Columbiana.
Yeah, Columbiana.
Columbiana.
And so every county in the state has a CAC assigned, and the CACs have a network. There are child abuse pediatricians at the major centers. So Akron has child abuse. University and Rainbow Babies shares a child abuse doc. There's a real big center in Columbus and Cincinnati. Kathy Makaroff and Rob Shapiro are the child abuse pediatricians. So that's where your caps are. But every county should have an affiliation with a CAC, and the CACs that don't have caps on site know how to find them.
Yeah, Lauren, actually, they are known, Akron Children's Hospital CAC is known as the Tri-County Child Advocacy Center because they actually take care of Trumbull County, Mahoney County, and Columbiana County. And I think, John, when you were there, they were doing Ashtabula too. I'm not sure if they're still doing Ashtabula, but yeah, they do reach out. But you wouldn't take a child there directly. The child would go from the emergency department in most cases for EMS, or like the case before, if the police didn't do anything, you have to realize that you are a mandatory reporter. And if the police fail to actually take a report or do anything, you are obligated to contact Children's Services. And we were talking about this a while back, and it was like even going to an emergency department and reporting the case to the emergency department physician is even sketchy because you're a mandatory reporter. That physician's a mandatory reporter too. But it's kind of like you are by law a mandatory reporter, and you are mandated to report that suspicious child abuse. So in your case, though, Lauren, in the case I think it was John that may have asked it, those cases you would report it to Children's Services, or you transport that child to the emergency department, and the emergency department may, involve Children's Services, or they may make the referral to the Child Advocacy Center, whatever it would be. But you wouldn't be taking anybody there personally.
I wasn't going to necessarily take them there, but I didn't
okay.
know. Unfortunately, my issue is the opposite of whoever spoke. Law enforcement, in my experience, has been excellent about the child abuse, and it's the CSB that's like, yeah, we don't care. We already have a file. They're very lax.
Really? That is shocking. Trumbull County was a red hot CSB when I was there. They had a lot of. As I say, I was there 5 years ago, but when I was there, I was really impressed with Trumbull County's CSB operation.
They may be overwhelmed, but I didn't know if it would make a difference to take something that we highly suspect to a better facility, more directed care. I didn't know if that would be Akron Children's PR, where you take a kid from Trumbull County to Akron Kids, so that link is directly there, and then you could call maybe after if the ER didn't listen to child advocacy, somewhere to get them a more focused attention, because unfortunately sometimes you do feel like you're just screaming and no one's listening.
Yeah, I think it's mandated reporting, and it's knowing who to talk to, having friends help. And as I say, unfortunately, I'm not in your system. If I were presenting in South Carolina,
do you remember this? You said we were going to have a lot of fun together, and you were right. We did.
Call me and I'm like,
we are.
Well, we can at least talk about it. It's a little hard to do that from across the country. But as I say, absolutely, you're a mandated reporter, and the CSB is really usually your best option. Unfortunately, there are mean things you can do to kids that are illegal. It's complicated, and I'm not going to say that we get completely good outcomes every single time. And with that, you have all wasted 3 hours of your life that you're never going to get back listening to me. I will thank you so much, and I will stay on if there are more questions, but other than that, thank you for your attention.
Thanks, John, as usual. Obviously, you have a lot of sense of humor, so that's good. It's great seeing you, too. Sounds like you're doing great work down in North Carolina, right?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, sorry. Yep.
Wrong Carolina.
I owe you ribs now, too, John. I'll figure out how to get them to you.
Real good. I'm looking forward to it.
Very good, though. Very informative as usual. Thank you so much for doing that. Great lecture.
Not a problem. It was a lot of fun.
I know I sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.